All right, let's dive into the ideas from the book A Real Place Called Heaven. It tackles what is, let's be honest, probably the biggest question any of us ever face. What happens after we die? Now, this book doesn't just offer some fuzzy, vague hopes. It tries to lay out a detailed blueprint, a kind of theological roadmap for what it calls our eternal home. So, let's take a look at what that roadmap actually says.
And what's so powerful is where this book starts. It doesn't just jump into abstract theory, no. It begins with a moment that's deeply personal and, sadly, universal: loss. The author shares these final heartbreaking moments with his mother, and that really grounds this entire exploration, you know? It's not starting from an academic place, but from the raw, real experience of grief and the search for answers that always comes with it.
So, here's how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with a final breath, and then get into this idea of death is a doorway. From there, we'll explore the book's description of what heaven is like, the kind of comfort for the grieving this view offers, and finally, what it all means for the race we still run.
Okay, so beginning from that very real place of loss, the book builds its entire case on one thing that is absolutely unavoidable, a universal truth for every single one of us: the certainty of a final breath.
The entire argument really hinges on one single crucial word from this verse in Hebrews: once. By hammering home that we are appointed to die once, the book sets up a really clear point of view. It's saying there are no second chances, no do-overs, and this immediately separates it from ideas like reincarnation, arguing instead for a very direct, straight line from life to death to whatever comes next.
So, if death is a one-time thing, what exactly is it? Well, according to the book, it's not the end. It's not a brick wall. It's a transition. A better way to think of it is less like a period at the end of life's sentence and more like a doorway into the very next chapter.
So here's the core definition the book gives us. Death isn't some kind of annihilation where you cease to exist. It's just a separation. The idea is pretty straightforward. The parts of you that are eternal, what the book calls your spirit and soul, are simply released from the part of you that is temporary, your physical body.
And to make this idea really tangible, the book uses this amazing metaphor from Scripture. It compares our earthly body to a temporary tent, something a bit fragile, exposed to the elements, and full of burdens. But in contrast, the heavenly body we're promised is described as a permanent building from God, something eternal, secure. The whole concept here is that it's a massive upgrade. You're trading in the tent for a mansion.
Now, looking at it this way completely reframes the whole experience of dying. For a believer, the book argues, it's not something to be afraid of at all. Instead, it's presented as the ultimate positive transition. Just like this verse says, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. It's actually positioned as a homecoming.
The book then adds another powerful metaphor: sleep. Now, it's really careful to clarify, this doesn't mean you're unconscious or that your soul is dormant. Not at all. It's more about the body being in a temporary state of rest. And just like we wake up from sleep, the teaching is that believers will one day awaken with brand new, resurrected bodies when the Lord returns.
Okay, so if death is just a doorway, what's actually on the other side? This next section gets into the nitty-gritty of how the book actually describes heaven.
So any picture you have of just floating on clouds, you can forget it. The heaven painted in this book is a place of vibrant activity. It's all about this deep personal connection, literally being with Jesus, seeing His glory, and entering this place He's prepared for you. But it's also deeply communal. You're clothed in white, joining in this unending worship, and, this is incredible, meeting millions who have gone on before. It's described as the ultimate place of belonging.
And all of this leads to a really radical conclusion when you think about it. For the person who has passed away, death isn't a loss, it's a gain. It's seen as an entry into a life that is described as far better than even the absolute best, most perfect day we could ever imagine here on Earth. That is a game-changing thought.
But this isn't just a bunch of theoretical theology. The book is really clear that these ideas are meant to provide real, practical comfort for those of us who are grieving.
And this right here is the heart of that comfort. Because death is framed as just a temporary separation, it allows for a totally different kind of grieving, one that's infused with hope. The sorrow is absolutely real, of course, but it gets transformed from the finality of goodbye forever into the hopeful promise of see you later.
Of course, this perspective doesn't just magically erase the pain or the really difficult questions that always come with loss. And the book acknowledges this directly. It asks those same questions. Why do some people die so young? Why do prayers for healing sometimes seem to go completely unanswered?
The book's answer to these painful whys is really found in this verse from Deuteronomy. It suggests that we have to accept that some things are just unknowable to us. They're the secret things that belong to God. So the call is to live by the truths that have been revealed and not get paralyzed by the questions that are still a mystery.
Which leads us to the final and maybe most crucial section of all. If our loved ones are in a better place, what's the purpose for those of us who are still here? What are we supposed to do? The book's charge to those of us still living is framed as a race. It's like we're inspired by this great cloud of witnesses. All those who've gone before are cheering us on, and the instructions are pretty clear. First, you gotta lighten your load. Lay aside all the weights and sin. Then, run your specific race with endurance. And finally, the whole time, your main goal is to be well-pleasing to Him.
So really, the ultimate takeaway is a direct call to action. It's a call to rise up from that sorrow, not to forget the person you lost, but to move forward with a renewed sense of purpose. The motivation is this belief that life is a race to be run faithfully, all the while knowing that the finish line is that promised reunion.
And so we land on this question, which really gets to the very heart of the book's entire message. Because at the end of the day, it isn't just about what happens after we die. It's about how a firm belief in an eternal, far better future could fundamentally change how we live, how we grieve, and how we run our race, right here and right now. It's a lot to think about.